They say the truth will set you free. But as my hand trembled, inches from that cold metal handle of room 407, I knew. Some truths don't set you free. They shatter you into a million pieces. And in that moment, all I could think was, once I turn this, nothing will ever be the same again. My world, my life, my heart, it was all about to end right here, in this dimly lit hallway. Just 6 months ago, my world felt perfect. Or at least I'd convinced myself it was. My wife, Sarah, was the absolute center of it. We met back in college. It's a cliché story, really. I was this clumsy, awkward guy who spilled an entire latte all over her art history textbook right before midterms. I was horrified. But she just looked at me. And then this incredible laugh just bubbled out of her. For the next 10 years, that laugh was my favorite song. It was the sound of home, of joy, of everything good in my life. Our mornings were a simple routine. I'd be up first, grinding the coffee beans, the smell filling our small, cozy house. She'd walk into the kitchen, sleepy-eyed and beautiful, and wrap her arms around me from behind. I'd tell her, "Morning, beautiful, coffee's on." And she'd kiss my cheek and say, "You're the best." I was working insane hours back then, trying to get my own architecture firm off the ground. It was a huge risk, but I was doing it for us, for the bigger house we dreamed of. For that trip to Italy, we kept planning. It was all for her, for our future. I remember one morning, I mentioned the Italy trip, and she just smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She said, "Italy. Yeah, that'll be nice." There was this tiny hesitation, a flicker of something distant in her expression. At the time, I just brushed it off. We were both stressed. I was buried in blueprints and contracts, and I figured she was just tired. I was a fool. Looking back now, I see the cracks were already there. I just refused to see them. The first real clue, the first thing that made my stomach twist, wasn't some dramatic discovery. It wasn't a lipstick stain on my collar or a mysterious number in her phone. It was silence. Sarah had started going to this new yoga class a few evenings a week. She said it helped her de-stress from work. I was happy for her, glad she'd found something for herself, but she started coming home. Different. She was quieter, more withdrawn. The silence she brought home with her was heavier, more suffocating than any argument we'd ever had. I'll never forget this one night. I was working late at my desk, trying to finalize the Miller contract. She came in, dressed in her yoga pants and a tank top, and just walked right past me. I said, "Hey, you're back late. How was class?" She didn't even look at me. She just put her gym bag down and mumbled, "Oh, good. Long session tonight. I'm just gonna go shower." There was no kiss, no touch. It was like I was a ghost in my own home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying that tiny, insignificant moment. Her gym bag. I'd bought it for her birthday. It was her favorite. But as she set it down, I realized I didn't hear the familiar clink of her metal water bottle against the floor. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I found myself standing in front of that gym bag. My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt like a criminal, but I had to know. I slowly unzipped it. My blood ran cold. There were no sweaty yoga clothes inside, no water bottle. There was just a neatly folded, expensive-looking black dress, and a pair of high heels I'd never seen before. It wasn't a yoga class. It was a lie. A carefully, deliberately constructed lie. My mind was racing, desperately trying to find an innocent explanation. Maybe she bought a new dress and went out with her friends after. But then, why lie about it? The question just echoed in the silence of our house. Why lie? That suspicion began to poison everything. It was like a parasite, eating me alive from the inside out. Every time she said she was working late, every girl's night out, every time she'd smile at a text and quickly put her phone away when I walked in the room. It all became another piece of this horrible puzzle I didn't want to solve. I started feeling like a detective in my own life, and the prime suspect was a person I loved more than anything in the world. I felt like I was going crazy. I tried to talk to my best friend, Mark. Mark was my business partner, the brother I never had. We'd been friends since we were kids. He and Sarah were great friends too. We were a trio. We were having lunch one day, and he could tell something was off. He asked, "Whoa, buddy, you're a million miles away. Everything okay with you and Sarah?" I just forced a smile and lied. "No, man, we're fine. Just tired." How could I say it out loud? How could I admit that I thought my wife, my Sarah, was lying to me? It felt like a betrayal just to think it, let alone speak it. The breaking point came a few weeks later. She told me she was going to her yoga class. I knew it was a lie. And the thought of just sitting at home, waiting, was unbearable. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I drove to the studio. I parked down the street, and I just watched. I sat there for 2 hours, watching the front door. The lights were off. The studio was empty. It had been closed the whole time. There was no yoga class. There was never a yoga class. I just gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as a single tear rolled down my cheek. I felt pathetic, a complete fool. The man who designed dream homes for other people couldn't even see that his own was built on a foundation of lies. That night, I decided I needed undeniable proof. When she came home, she was dressed up. "I'm heading out," she said, putting on earrings. "Jessica's having a crisis with her ex again. I'll probably be late." My voice was cold when I replied, "Jessica, right. Give her my best." She paused, finally seeing the look in my eyes. "Is something wrong, Liam?" she asked. I just stared at her and said, "You tell me, Sarah. Is something wrong?" She forced a laugh, her eyes darting away. "I have no idea what you're talking about. You've been so strange lately. I have to go." And she hurried out. The moment she was gone, I walked over to her laptop. For 10 years, I had respected her privacy. But this wasn't about privacy anymore. This was about the truth. With my hand shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse, I opened her browser history, and there it was. Hotel booking confirmations. The Grandview Hotel, room 407, booked for tonight, a confirmation for 2 guests. But the final, soul-crushing blow wasn't the hotel. It was the name on the reservation. The reservation was under Carter. But it wasn't my first name. It was his. Mark. Mark. Not some random stranger, not a meaningless fling. Mark, my business partner. The man I celebrated every success with. The man who talked me off the ledge after every failure. The best man at my wedding. The betrayal was so complete, so absolute. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just my wife I was losing. It was my best friend, my brother, my entire life, my entire history was a lie. The drive to the hotel was a blur. Every happy song on the radio felt like a personal insult. Every couple I saw laughing on the sidewalk was a mockery. I thought about all the signs I had ignored. The way Mark would compliment Sarah just a little too much. The way she would hang on his every word. The late-night work sessions they supposedly had to finish a project. It was all there, right in front of my face. And I had been completely, utterly blind. I walked through the hotel lobby like a man in a trance. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. The hallway seemed to stretch on for miles. Every step was a war with myself. A part of me was screaming to turn around, go home, live in ignorance. But the other part, the part that was already shattered and bleeding, needed to see it. I needed the final, brutal, undeniable truth. I got to the door, room 407. And I could hear it. Muffled laughter from inside. Her laughter. My favorite song. Now, it was the soundtrack to the end of my world. This brings me back to where I started. Standing there, my hand hovering over the handle. I took a deep, ragged breath. I didn't knock. I just turned the handle. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open. The room was dim. A bottle of champagne on the table, clothes strewn over a chair. And there, on the bed, were Sarah and Mark. They didn't see me at first. I was just a silhouette standing in the doorway. Then the laughter died in Sarah's throat. Her eyes went wide with a kind of pure, unadulterated panic I had never seen before. "Liam," she gasped. Mark scrambled up, pulling a sheet around himself, his face a mask of guilt and shock. "Oh, man, Liam, it's not what it looks like." I let out this hollow, broken sound. It was supposed to be a laugh. It was more painful than a scream. "It's not what it looks like." My voice was eerily calm, but it was filled with a universe of pain. "You're in a hotel room with my wife, Mark, my best friend, and my wife. I think it's exactly what it looks like." Sarah started to cry. "Liam, please, let me explain." I just shook my head, taking a step back into the hallway. "Explain what, Sarah? Explain the yoga classes? The nights with Jessica? Explain the last 10 years. Was any of it real?" Then I looked at Mark, the man I called my brother. The betrayal burned in my eyes. "You stood at my wedding. You gave a speech about honor and trust. Were you sleeping with her then, too?" He just stammered, "No, Liam, it happened." I scoffed. "It just happened. Betrayal on this level doesn't just happen. It's a choice. You chose this. Every single day, you chose to look me in the eye and lie." I turned back to Sarah, and all the anger just drained away, replaced by this profound, bottomless sadness. "I gave you everything," I whispered. "My whole heart. I worked myself to the bone for us, for our dream, and you threw it all away. For this, for him." Her sobs were the only sound in the room. "I'm so sorry," she wept. "I never wanted to hurt you." A single tear finally fell from my eye. "You know what the worst part is? It's not even the cheating. It's the lies. It's looking back and realizing the person I built my life with was a complete stranger." I didn't slam the door. I just closed it quietly behind me. leaving them in the ruins of the world they had destroyed. I never saw either of them again. I walked away from the hotel, from our home, from my company. I left everything. For a long time, the pain was all-consuming. It was a physical ache in my chest, a constant reminder of what I had lost. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your past, it poisons your present, and it makes you terrified of the future. But then, one day, you wake up and the sun is shining. You take a breath and the air doesn't feel so heavy anymore. You learn that trust, once shattered, can never be perfectly glued back together. But you can build something new. You can learn to trust again. Starting with the one person you know you can always count on, yourself. I learned that some storms don't come to disrupt your life. They come to clear your path. And for the first time in a very long time, my path was finally my own.